With so many options out there, it can be a very daunting task to pick a trail running shoe. But today on the channel, I am going to give you 5 tips to help you with that process. Welcome to the channel, everyone. Dog Walker Dave here. And yes, today I'm going to give you 5 tips to help you choose a trail running shoe. So let's get at it. Okay, tip number 1. The most important thing for any running shoes and for any sport-related footwear, period, is the shoe has to fit. It makes no sense to go on about the grip and all the materials and what the midsole is like and all these other different factors that I will talk about if the shoe doesn't fit. There are certain brands that will fit a little bit wider in the toe box, as an example, Ultra. Some fit narrower. I know the European brands, Salomon, sometimes La Sportiva, and some other brands fit a little bit narrower, but that doesn't really matter. You need to try on the shoe, preferably at your local running store, or if you get online purchase, try them on before you take them out. And if they do not fit, send them back. Again, I can't stress this enough. If you have a shoe that does not fit, it can be perfect in every other way. But if it doesn't fit your foot, it's absolutely useless to you. So make sure it fits. That's the number one thing. And it should fit basically right out of the box. You put it on your foot, make sure you give yourself at least a thumbnail width room on the end on your bigger foot, because your foot swells after a long run out there on the trails. But make sure there are no hot spots whatsoever. There's no little nagging things that you can feel somewhere around your heel or your toes or any pinch points. Make sure it fits. Now, with number 1 out of the way, number 2 is the grip. Now, unlike road running shoes, the grip on trail running shoes is actually very important. Different shoe manufacturers use different types of rubber. Common ones that are used are Vibram, Continental, and Goodyear, and they are known to have very good rubber for outsoles. But with saying that, brands like Saucony, Innovate, from what I've heard, and Salomon have their own proprietary outsole material, and it works very well. At least I've tried Saucony and Salomon, and their outsole grip is very good. One manufacturer I would stay away from is actually the biggest sporting good manufacturer in the world. They have great road shoes, racing shoes for the road. Many things about the trail shoes are very good, but I'm not the only one out there. Go on many different reviewers on YouTube and you will find that the outsole of this specific sport brand are not known to have very good grip. They might look good, but they really don't work that well. And if you are on any type of technical trail whatsoever, other than something that is very dry, I personally would stay away from that manufacturer. And I'm pretty sure that you know what manufacturer that is. You probably want to consider lug depth as well. Lug depth can be anywhere from usually about 3 millimeters to roughly 5 millimeters. Something like the Salomon Speed Cross, which many people are very familiar with, they have a 5 millimeter lug depth. 5 millimeter lug depth is great for when you have extremely technical trails and you need that really extra bite. My sweet spot that I like for lug depth is probably around the 4 millimeter. 5 millimeter is a little bit too deep to be very versatile for lots of different conditions, so I like to go with something around the 4 millimeter. Anything less than 4 millimeter, I try to stay away from. Lug placement does matter, but it's not as important as the outsole material, the type of rubber used, and the lug depth. Some manufacturers will claim that the pattern that they use on their lugs is beneficial in A, B, and C way, but when it comes down to it, it's the type of rubber used and the lug depth itself that I believe is the most useful to most people. And if at all possible, get yourself 2 pair of trail shoes. Just think about this for a sec. If you pick up golf as an example for one of your sports, or disc golf or regular golf, you're not going to go with just one club. You're going to go with several different clubs. You don't need to go out and get yourself 10 different pair of running shoes or even 5 like I have. But if you have 2, it's nice to have. And they are different, so you can use them for different type of training or possibly different racing. Before we get into the remaining 3 things to look for in trail running shoes, if you could grip that subscribe button, that would really help out the channel. The third thing to look for when purchasing trail running shoes is the midsole. Not only the stack height, but the offset. Now the offset is the difference between the heel, the thickness of the midsole and the heel, and the forefoot. Some people swear by 0 drop as in ultra running shoes. Some people prefer a really tall stack height. The Salomon Speedcross 5 that I have a 10 millimeter offset, which for a lot of people is very aggressive, and a lot of people don't like that 10 mil drop. A lot of people prefer around the 4 to 6 millimeter offset. Some people really like that tall stack height, and some people really go for the minimal stack height. That's personal preference. I will note that if you have a really thick midsole, a lot of times they don't put a rock plate in it because it's not necessary, because you have all that midsole cushioning to help with your feet. So a rock plate is kind of useless. They usually don't put one in. But if you have a lower stack height, a lot of times they will put a rock plate in. They'll really help you when you run over anything like roots and sharp rocks and whatnot to help protect the bottom of your foot. The midsole stack height and the type of midsole rubber that they use is not extremely important. It's how it feels on your foot. I'm a fan of something that's a little bit firmer, like they use in Salomon shoes, but I recently switched over to Salomon Ultra Glide, and they have actually a soft midsole for Salomon, and I like those. So that's a matter of personal preference. The midsole material, again, the stack height and the offset, the heel compared to the thickness in the forefoot. I also have to mention that with respect to the midsole stack height is that some people find that the higher stack height, as in with Hoka running shoes, they have a tendency to roll their ankle a little bit more. If I were starting out picking trail running shoes, I would go with a little bit less than something like a Hoka, possibly. And again, I'm not for or against any specific brand, but to stay with a little bit less of a stack height on your midsole until you develop stronger ankles. And then if your ankles get stronger running trails, and that's one way to get stronger ankles is just running trails, you might be able to get away with a higher stack height. Again, there's no perfect system here, everyone. It's what feels and works best for you. The fourth thing on my list is foot protection. Now, what makes trail shoes different than road running shoes? There are several different things. The outsole traction is one thing, but the second thing is foot protection. What you want in a trail running shoe typically is to have some overlays. So basically they're bits of plastic, if you think about it, that are around the upper of the running shoe, the top part that goes around your foot. You want some overlays to help with sticks poking through and other sharp things that you encounter when you're on the trail, sharp rocks poking through on the side of your foot. You're also looking for a little bit of a toe bumper. You don't need an excessive one like are found on some running shoes, but you do need to have a little bit of a bumper in the front of your running shoe to help protect from your toes hitting straight on those big rocks and roots. Trust me, it hurts when you do it the first time. It's really nice when you switch over to a trail shoe to have that to protect your toes. And as I mentioned with the midsole stack height, if you have a really thick stack height, as in with the Hoka running shoes or other trail running shoe brands that have a thicker stack height, you can get away without a rock plate. But if you have a thinner midsole and even a minimal midsole, it's a really nice thing to have that rock plate. And what a rock plate is, it's a piece of plastic underneath your footbed that helps protect with stone bruises and sharp rocks and hitting roots and pushing up against the bottom of your foot. Because once you get a bruise on the bottom of your foot in the middle of a training session or in the middle of a race, it's not very comfortable at all. So that's one thing to look for as far as foot protection. The last part of the foot protection puzzle is to have a gusseted tongue. Now, what a gusseted tongue is that the tongue on your running shoes, if it's partly sewn into the midsole, so that it wraps around your foot, and what that does is to help dirt and debris getting inside your foot. You're still going to get dirt and debris inside your foot, but if you have at least a semi-gusseted tongue and possibly even a fully gusseted tongue, it helps prevent dirt from entering your shoe. It's not a perfect solution, but it helps. The last tip for purchasing trail running shoes, number 5, is some other things. Now, there are 2 other things I want to mention. Number 1 is Gore-Tex. Some people think that, trail running shoes, I'm going to be running through creeks and whatnot, and it'd be great to have Gore-Tex in my running shoes. I personally, and many people out there, will tell you to stay away from any type of waterproofing in your running shoes. Because the problem is, a lot of times you're going to run in streams that are deeper than your running shoe, and Gore-Tex is not going to prevent the water from going in through the top of your running shoe. Might help on the sides, or it will help on the sides, But once that water's inside the shoe, Gore-Tex is a fantastic material, but what it also does is that it really traps in the heat in your feet. So if you have Gore-Tex running shoes, if you get water on the inside of Gore-Tex running shoes, the water really has a hard time escaping from the shoes, and your feet are going to stay wet on the inside. So Gore-Tex is great from keeping water from going inside the shoes, but once it's inside the shoes, it's really hard for the water to get out of the shoes. And what you want in trail running shoes, if you're going to do any stream crossings whatsoever, is that you want water to be able to escape from your shoes, not to stay in your shoes, because wet feet, it's unavoidable in many types of trail runs and races, but if they stay wet for too long, it gets very uncomfortable and it actually can lead to some problems, especially if you're out there for many hours. The last thing I want to point out in tip number 5, some people will swear by having these attachments on your running shoes for Gators. Now, what Gators are, they are a little kind of a sock that goes around your ankle, possibly a little bit higher up, and what they do is prevent debris from entering your shoes. I personally will wear them if I'm running in deep snow, and it's not that often that I will wear them. Some people swear by them when they're running in races that occur in a desert environment. As an example, the Comrades Marathon, which is a very big marathon that's held in Africa, a lot of people will swear by having gaiters specifically made for the sand that keep the sand out of your feet. So that's something that you might want to consider when purchasing a pair of running shoes, depending on where you're going to do your training and your racing. So everyone, those are my 5 things to help you choose a pair of trail running shoes. Again, the most important thing when picking a pair of trail running shoes is the fit. I hope you found this video educational. Leave a comment below if you have any other tips for purchasing trail running shoes. Thanks for following along, everyone. Appreciate the support, and make sure you get outside. Peace.